Good day, data enthusiasts. Welcome back to our channel. Today, we are diving into a cutting-edge feature that's transforming the way we manage and utilize data in the cloud. I'm thrilled to introduce you to the world of data virtualization in Azure SQL Managed Instance, and more specifically, the powerful Create External Table as Select or CETAS functionality. But hold on tight, because we are not stopping there. We are taking it a step further by exploring how to harness the true potential of CETAS with SAS tokens. You are in for a data-packed ride that will showcase how CETAS empowers you to seamlessly export local data, optimize storage costs, and even collaborate across analytics solutions. So let's jump right in. But before we get started, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss out on our tech deep dives and tutorials. All right then, let's set the stage. You have got an Azure SQL managed instance and you are dealing with data that's growing by the day. Maybe you have got those cold records that are rarely accessed but still taking up precious space. Or perhaps you are part of a multi-tenant application setup, seeking a streamlined way to distribute shared datasets. This is where CETAS steps in to save the day. CETAS, C-E-T-A-S, short for Create External Table as Select, is a game changer. It's all about exporting your local data from your managed instance, that is your Azure SQL managed instance, as Parquet or CSV files to Azure storage accounts. In this case, we'll be using the SAS tokens with the storage accounts. But that's just the beginning. We are talking about unlocking the power of data virtualization, enabling you to query this exported data as an external table. Whether you're looking to offload cold data or supercharge your analytics solutions, CETAS has got your back. But wait, there is more. Today, we are not only diving into CETAS itself, but we are also adding another layer of security and control the access to the storage account using the SAS tokens. SAS tokens or shared access signature tokens are your key to secure data sharing. We will show you how to ensure the right access to your exported data while keeping things locked down. So whether you are a data pro or just getting started on your cloud journey, this video is your passport to mastering data virtualization, CETAS and storage account SAS tokens in Azure SQL Managed Instance. Get ready to uncover the magic behind offloading data, optimizing storage costs, and simplifying analytics. Stick around as we guide you through the step-by-step process of setting up CETAS with SAS tokens for secure data export and visualization. All right, enough with the introduction. Let's dive right into the action. Welcome to a world where data knows no boundaries and possibilities are endless. Let's get started. We will be using PG-MI-UKS managed instance for this demo. What we'll do is we will be exporting some of the data from a table called Table 1 on a database called JBS Wiki from this managed instance onto the storage account, and we'll be utilizing the polybase feature here. So the first thing that we need to do is we basically have to enable this particular CETAS feature, and for that you basically have to enable the option allowPolybaseExport. So that is the one that we need to enable it. So what we'll do now is this is not something you can do it from your TSQL. You will have to use Azure CLI or PowerShell. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the PowerShell console here for this managed instance, and then I'll be enabling this feature. I'll be using this particular script here, the PowerShell script. So you will have to basically provide your subscription ID and then your resource group where your managed instance is located. and also your managed instance name, and then you will have to run it. Make sure you just give the managed instance name, not the full FQDN. Yep. And once you provide all the required details, what you can do is you can execute this particular PowerShell command onto the console that you have opened for managed instance. So I'm just going to do an control. I'm just going to paste it here, and then I'm going to run it. If you want, you can save it as an PowerShell file and call it from the file. But here, since it is like 4 or 5 lines, I'm directly calling it. I'll be putting this script onto the description section. You guys can reuse that. Let's wait for it to complete. I'm going to pause this video because it's going to take some time for this feature to get enabled. So once it is enabled, I will resume the video back. If you can see here, it is enabled now. Name allowPolybaseExport, and it is enabled. So one thing to keep in mind is that this feature is not turned on by default for each of the Azure SQL managed instance. It is enabled only when a need arises, so it has to be done manually. Yep. So now what I'm going to do is now that we have enabled this feature, let's check whether this feature is actually enabled or not. So for that, what I'm going to do, I'm going to query the managed instance pg-mi-uks. I'm going to query sys.configurations, and then I'm going to check if allowPolybaseExport is set to 1 or not. So if we see here, the value when used is set to 1. So this ensures allowPolybaseExport export feature is enabled. Now what I'm going to do, now that we have enabled the feature on the managed instance, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the storage account, and I'll be preparing the storage account to make sure the Polybase export, whatever files that are going to be exported from your managed instance onto the storage account, we have it all taken care. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a storage account. So let's click on create here. And then I will name this storage account as DB Archival SAS. So let's select the required resource group, and after that the storage account name would be DB Archival SAS, and then I will leave the region as UK South, and performance level I will select standard, and then redundancy I will utilize locally redundant storage. Yep. And then let's click on advanced. So here I'm going to leave everything as default, and then let's click on next. And here I'm going to utilize enable public access from all networks. I'm going to leave this as well as default. Let's click on data protection. So here also I will leave everything as default, and then what I'll do now, I will leave these things also as default, and then let's click on next. And then what we'll do now, we will create the storage account for this particular demo. Let's click on it, and I think we can close this PowerShell window that is no longer required. So let's wait for the storage account to get completed, and once it is completed, we will move on to the next step. Okay, so the storage account is created now. So let's go to the resource. Let's head to the containers, and then let's create a container here. So we will create a container here, and we need to ensure that this container is empty for the CETAS feature to create an using the CETAS feature. In order to create an external table, we need to ensure that the container that we are going to create is empty, or else it is going to error out. We will name this container as ext tables, and then let's click on create. So we have the storage account DB archival SAS created, and also the container inside that ext tables created. So now what we'll do is like we will try getting the required SAS tokens from this particular storage account, and then we will try creating the external table. Yep. So for that, what we'll do now is like we will get to the SQL Server Management Studio, and then I will basically be showing the required scripts that we'll be utilizing. So on the JBS Wiki database, we have two tables, table 1 and table 2. And now what I'm going to do is like I'm going to move some of the data from table 1 to the blob storage, and then I will create it as an external table so that it can be used whenever it is required. It will make sure like it is not eating up the costly storage on Azure SQL managed instance, or the data is not frequently used. So we move it to the blob storage, which is comparably cheap, and we will still be able to check those data using the external table. Okay, so right now what I'm seeing is like we have close to 2 million rows, close to like 2.1 million rows in this particular table. So first I'll be creating a master key, and then I'll be creating a database scope credential, and then an external data source, and then an external file format, and then at last I'll be creating an external table. Okay, so first what I'll do is like I will start with creating this master key on this particular database. Please remember to provide a strong password here, since it is a demo. Basically, like I will be destroying this managed instance after this video, so that is the reason I'm using this password. But make sure like you use a proper password. Yep, I'm going to create a database scoped credential here. For that we need this SAS secret. So what we'll do is like we'll head back to the Azure portal, and then get the required SAS token. Okay, so we are on the storage account DB archival SAS. Let's go to the container, and then let's get into this ext tables container. And then what we'll do is like let's click on this shared access tokens. Yeah, so what we'll do now is like we will provide the required permission. So for this to successfully complete, we basically need create, write, and then list. Okay, so these are the 4 permissions that we will require. But what I'll do now is like I will not provide permission list, and then let's get the required details here, the secret, and then what we will do is like we will try creating the scope credentials, and then see what happens. Yeah, so I have copied the secret here. So I'm going to give that here, and then I'm going to create this database scope credential called archival credentials. Yeah, so let's run it. So it is completed. So now what I'm going to do is like I'm going to create an external data source that basically tells my external table that what would be the source where I basically have to write the data onto this particular whatever data that you need to write. You basically have to tell the source. So what I'm doing here is like I'm first copying the storage account value here. So if we go back to our on the storage account, let's head into this container ext tables, and then let's go to the properties. And then if you see here the URL, it basically tells like it is db archival sas.blob.co.windows.net/ext tables. Let's copy that, and then let's head to our SSMS, and then let's paste it here. And then what we basically have to do is like the container has to come first, which is ext tables in my case, and then you need to use this symbol, and then you basically have to paste your storage account FQDN. Yep. So in my case, it is db archival sas.blob.co.windows.net. Yep. So this is how you create an external data source, and also you need to provide your credentials here, which is basically the one that you created previously, which is archival credential. So let's execute that. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create an external file format, and the format type would be the Parquet format. So I'm going to create this, and let's see what happens. So it's completed. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create the external table, and we will be utilizing the data source that we have created and also the file format that we have created, and then we will basically tell inside ext tables on the storage account db archival sas, we will be creating these Parquet files, whatever is going to go into the storage account inside table 1. That will be the location. Yep. No need for you to create this. This will be automatically created if you have proper permission. So now what I'm doing is I'm creating an external table based on the select statement. Since we are creating this using the select, it is called CETAS. Yep. So what I'm basically doing, I'm selecting all the columns on this table, and then the predicate is column 52 less than get date minus 100. So what I'm basically doing is any data that is basically less than 100 days from today, I'm basically moving those data onto the cold storage. So what in my scenario, what I'm basically doing is I'm basically moving all data that is older than 10 days onto my storage account. So that means instead of removing those data, there is a requirement that the older data should be placed, and this older data, that is the data that is older than 100 days, is not frequently accessed, but there is a possibility someone might be using that. So that is the reason I don't want to continue keeping that on the managed instance. Instead, I'll be moving across to the Azure storage account. Yep. So let's execute this query. And then if I execute it, I'm basically getting an error. Text type for a column 49 is not allowed as a column type when executing create external table as select. So it's basically telling column 49, the data type is text, and that is not allowed. So what we'll do, let's go and check that. Let's press Alt F1, and then let's see what is column 49. Column 49 is text, so that is not allowed. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to cast that. Instead of text, I'll be casting it to varchar 8000 and see what happens. Let's go to column 49. And then here what I'm going to do, I'm going to use a convert varchar 8000 comma I've converted it to varchar 8000. Let's see what happens. Create table. So if you see this error, it basically tells an object or column name is missing or empty. So so what we'll do now, we will make sure this, we'll add an as here, and then we will try executing it. Let's see what happens this time. This time it is running for 3-4 seconds. Let's see what happens. I'm going to pause this video, and then I will resume back just in case there is an error or it completes. Okay, so it completed. In my case, it took close to 1 minute 53 seconds. So after 2 errors, I was successfully able to create that table. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to select just one row from that external table. So if you see here, the external table that we created is table 1 external. So let's execute that. And then if we see here, we are getting this error called external table. Table 1 external is not accessible because content of directory cannot be listed. So this is something to do with the permission. If we remember, I've told like we may, so any access for this shared access token, I told like we may require access like read, create, write, and list, but we did not give list last time when we created it, so that is the problem. So now what we need to do is like we basically have to provide list permission also, and then we need to check that further. So let's provide that. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to click on create, write, and list. Yeah, this is something that we definitely have to do it. And then let's click on generate SAS token and URL. Okay, so I'm just going to copy that. Let's alter the database scope credential, archival credential to hold the new secret. So what we'll do is like we will use an alter database scope credential command, and then let's update this with the new credential that we have generated with list permission, and then let's try executing this. So this is completed. We have updated the credential, scoped credential, archival credential with the appropriate access secret, which basically has list permission as well. And then let's execute this query. And this time, if you can see here, we are able to get the required data. So let's change it from top 1 to top 10 and also include the actual execution plan. And then let's execute it. And if we execute this query, the query completed within 2 seconds. And if I look at the execution plan, what I'm able to see is like there is an remote scan, which basically tells like the data that we are getting is basically from Azure Blob storage. At least we know like we have moved it to Azure Blob storage. Remote scan is like basically shows that that operator that the data is there coming outside of the Azure SQL managed instance. So that is what we are able to see. So we were able to successfully move the required data onto Azure Blob storage. So we can utilize this particular feature for the archival requirement. For example, if the customer feels like the old data should be moved from the Azure SQL managed instance, but if they still require access to that to access those data maybe infrequently, then we can definitely utilize this particular feature, CETAS feature, and then we can provide archival design to the customers. So now what we'll do is like we will just look at the storage account and also go to this ext tables container. And if you see here, let's go back to our query here. And then if you see here, if you look at the external table that we have created, we have basically provided the location table 1. And if I go to that storage account and I'm inside this container, if you see here, we have this table 1 created. This one we have not created it. For example, if you see here, there is no create here. This is created by the CETAS command. And now if I click on this, you will be able to see the files created, those Parkway files from where we are basically retrieving our data. So now what I'll do is like I will clear off the things. Before that, let's look at the database JBS wiki and then just look at the external sources, external tables, and all those things from the GUI as well, so that we will get some details. Now, if I go to the external sources here, I'm able to see the external data source here. I'm able to see the external file format here. Let's try right-clicking on it. And then if you see here, we are able to, we can script it as well. Now let's go to the tables. and then you have something called external table there, and then inside that external table we will be able to find the table that we have created. My managed instance is a 4-core managed instance, so it is a little slow. Now if I click on the external tables here, we'll be able to see that particular table that we have created. Let's clear off now that we have completed this demo. Let's clear it off. So it is all completed. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching. Have a great day. Jai Hind.